The air crackled with tension as the bright studio lights illuminated the sleek, polished oak table. Jungkook, a man whose legendary influence had defined the K-pop industry for generations, sat with an unshakable presence. His youthful face, usually radiant with charm, remained unreadable. Across from him sat Kim Joo-woo, a sharp young journalist known for exposing scandals and fueling controversy. She wasn't here for a friendly discussion. She was here to stir the pot. Standing behind Jungkook, silent but impossible to ignore, was his mother, a figure of quiet strength and resilience. At 26, Jungkook loomed over most people, his piercing brown eyes surveying the room with an air of wisdom beyond his years. As a member of BTS, currently fulfilling his mandatory military service, Jungkook had grown into a man of profound depth and maturity. The interview kicked off with pointed, cutting questions, each one aimed to provoke. Jiwoo leaned in, her voice laced with challenge. Jungkook SSI, some say your music is outdated, irrelevant. Why cling to a spotlight that no longer shines for you? Jungkook's eyes darkened slightly, but before he could speak, his mother cut in, her tone steady, her words deliberate. Sometimes the brightest lights are the ones people fail to notice. Be careful not to overlook them. Jiwoo hadn't anticipated Jungkook's mother stepping in. Her pen hesitated mid-sentence, and for the first time, she faltered. I wasn't aware you were part of this conversation, she said, trying to regain control. I'm not, Jungkook's mother replied smoothly. But when someone disrespects a man who has stood the test of time, it's difficult to stay quiet. Jungkook placed a steady hand on his mother's shoulder, silently acknowledging her words. She's at a point, Jungkook said, his deep voice slicing through the tension. Let's focus on the real story here, not just a flashy headline. But Jiwoo wasn't about to let the opportunity slip away. You talk about respect, Jungkook SSI, yet your career has been one of the most scrutinized in history. What makes you think you have the authority to discuss legacy and integrity? Jungkook's jaw tightened, but he didn't waver. I speak because I've lived through it, he replied without hesitation. And because I've learned from people like my mother, those who earn their place in history not by bringing others down, but by standing firm in their own truth. Jiwoo leaned back, observing him closely. The young idol wasn't just an echo of his past. He was something different. As the interview progressed, Jiwoo shifted her approach, intent on uncovering what she believed were hidden weaknesses. Jungkook SSI, she began, her tone icy. There are whispers that you've used your influence to protect your family's reputation. Do you have a response to that? Jungkook's gaze darkened. Rumors are like shadows, harmless until you choose to give them weight. I don't entertain gossip, Jiwoo SSI. But Jiwoo wasn't finished. And what about you, Jungkook SSI? Living under the weight of your fame must be overwhelming. How do you handle always being seen as just a member of BTS? A heavy silence filled the room. For the first time, Jungkook's mask of composure cracked. His voice, steady yet layered with raw emotion, cut through the tense air. I'm more than just a member of BTS. People like my mother have shown me that a legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you earn. You want a headline? Write this down. Respect isn't given. It's proved. The air in the room thickened, Jungkook's words settling like a storm on the horizon. Jiwoo's hand trembled slightly as she scribbled her notes. Something had shifted and everyone in the room could feel it. Then the interview took a sharper turn. Jiwoo, fueled by the pressure to deliver a career-defining story, leaned in, her tone cutting and unrelenting. Jungkook SSI, some have called you the guardian of your family's legacy. What do you say to that? Is that a title you wear with pride, or do you see it as a weight on your shoulders? Jungkook's face remained expressionless, yet for a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes, a deeply buried pain. Before he could respond, His mother's voice cut through the silence once more, steady but firm. Is it truly controversial to stand by those you care about? Or is it just easier to attack what you don't understand? Jiwoo arched an eyebrow. So, you're admitting there's controversy? Jungkook didn't waver. The controversy isn't in the truth, it's in how people distort it. My mother's loyalty isn't a burden, it's proof of her integrity. The air in the room became almost unbearable. Even the security personnel stationed at the doors shifted uneasily. For the first time, Jiwoo seemed to falter. The young man before her wasn't just defending his mother. He was dismantling every attempt she made to provoke him. But Jiwoo wasn't finished. She was only getting started. As the cameras continued rolling, she reached in her bag and pulled out a worn file, its edges frayed from years of use. Jungkook, she began, her tone icy. There are murmurs about an incident from your past, a choice that might have put lives at risk. Care to respond? Jungkook's jaw clenched. A heavy silence settled over the room, thick with anticipation. His mother's eyes flicked toward him, seeing her usually unshakable son caught in a rare moment of vulnerability. That's enough, his mother said, her voice low but commanding. Yivo smirket. What's wrong, Jungkook SSI? Afraid the truth might shatter your perfect view of yourself. Jungkook rose to his feet, his towering figure casting a long shadow across the room. The truth doesn't intimidate me, he said, but your obsession with tearing people apart does. You want a story? How about the one where my mother saved my life twice? The room went still. Jiwoo hesitated, momentarily thrown off guard. She saved your life? She echoed, skepticism lacing her words. Yes, Jungkook said, his voice thick with emotion. But that doesn't matter to you, does it? You'd rather reopen old wounds than acknowledge the woman who has been my rock in a world that's anything but stable. The weight of Jungkook's words filled the room, thick and heavy. For a brief moment, Jiwoo was silent, her confidence faltering. What do you mean? Your mother saved your life? She finally asked, her voice now quieter, less certain. Jungkook's gaze hardened, but beneath it, there was a flicker of pain. When I was younger, something happened. A legitimate threat was made against me. My mother was the one who stepped up. She protected me when no one else could. Jiwoo's pen hovered over her notepad, her hands trembling ever so slightly. Why has no one ever heard this story before? Because my mother doesn't do things for attention, Jungkook replied. She doesn't need recognition from the world. She simply does what's right, even when no one is looking. For the first time, Jungkook's mother, who had remained silent, spoke up. Imnoaru Jungkook. I just did what any mother would have done. Jungkook shook his head. Not any mother. Only someone like you. The room went completely still, except for the quiet hum of the recording equipment. Jiwoo looked down, her usual confidence unraveling. For the first time, she seemed to grasp the depth of the story unfolding before her. The tension was suffocating until Jungkook's voice shattered the silence once more. You want the truth, Jiwoo SSI? Here it is. When I was younger, a real, credible threat was made against my life. It wasn't just a false alarm. It was real. And when everything went south, my mother was the one who took action. Jiwoo's pen lingered above the paper, but her fingers trembled. What happened? She whispered, her curiosity now outweighing her original intentions. Jungkook's eyes grew distant, as if he were back in that moment. I was at home, just a kid, when suddenly chaos erupted. A man with a weapon broke through our gates. Our security team hesitated. My mother didn't. The room fell into a heavy, uneasy silence. Jungkook's mother sat in silence, her jaw clenched tightly. I did what any mother would do, she said, her voice low but firm. I acted. That's all. Jungkook's voice wavered. You didn't just act. You put your life on the line for me. You saved me. And that's why I won't sit here and let anyone tear you down. Tears filled the eyes of those in the room, including Jiwoo. She leaned back in her chair, momentarily speechless. The jungkook she had assumed she knew was being replaced by a man whose courage she couldn't ignore. "Why hasn't this story been told?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Jungkook's mother gave a small shrug, her weathered face revealing the weight of time. "Because it wasn't about me. It was about protecting Jungkook." Jungkook turned to Jiwoo, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "Do you know what it's like to owe someone your life? To realize that if they hadn't been there, you might not be here at all? It's a burden, Jiwoo SSI. A beautiful, humbling burden." Jiwoo blinked rapidly, her polished professional demeanor slipping. "I didn't know," she admitted in a murmur. "Because you never asked," Jungkook responded. "You came here with a story you wanted to tell. You were ready to paint my mother as something she's not. But the truth is, she's more than you could ever imagine." The silence that followed was heavy, yet not uncomfortable. It carried weight, respect, contemplation, and something Jiwoo hadn't anticipated: admiration. The energy in the room shifted. Jiwoo looked at Jungkook, then at his mother, before glancing down at her notepad. Her carefully prepared questions suddenly felt meaningless. "Jungkook Sasai," she said thoughtfully, "why do you defend your mother so fiercely? It's not just about that one moment, is it?" Jungkook hesitated, his eyes glistening. "No, it's not. My mother isn't just my parent. She's my mentor. When I was busy with my career, she was the one who taught me what it means to be a man." His mother exhaled, leaning back in her chair. "I just did what I believe was right. Jungkook needed someone, and I just happened to be there." Jiwoo lowered her gaze, guilt settling over her. "I think I came here intending to tear you down because I didn't understand. I assumed you were just another idol trying to stay relevant. But now I realize how wrong I was." Jungkook gave a small nod. "We all make mistakes, Jiwoo SSI. What matters is what we do once we know the truth." For the first time, Jiwoo seemed at a loss for words. The confrontation she had planned was slipping away, replaced by something far more meaningful. As the interview paused for a short break, Jungkook stepped aside, taking a moment to collect himself. His security team, always on alert, maintained their distance but remained attentive. In the corner of the room, Jiwoo's eyes landed on a small leather briefcase. It belonged to Jungkook's mother. "May I?" She gestured toward it. Jungkook's mother hesitated before giving a slight nod. "Go ahead. There's nothing inside I'm ashamed of." Jiwoo carefully unlatched the case and pulled out an old, folded letter. The paper was worn and yellowed with time, the handwriting unsteady yet familiar. As she read, her expression softened. It was addressed to Jungkook's mother, written by Jungkook years ago. The words spoke of gratitude, of a young boy's deep admiration for the woman who had stepped into his life during uncertain times. "You kept this." Jiwoo's voice was barely above a whisper. Jungkook's mother nodded. "It reminds me why I do what I do. It's not about cameras or recognition. It's about being there when it truly counts." Jungkook returned, noticing the letter in Jiwoo's hands. For a brief moment, his guarded expression faded, replaced by a warm smile. "She's always kept it," Jungkook said. "That's my mother, always holding on to reminders of what really matters." As the camera started rolling again, Jiwoo's demeanor shifted, her voice softer. "Jungkook is," she began. "Why did you choose to stay close to your family, knowing the scrutiny that would come with it?" Jungkook leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Because loyalty isn't conditional. It's not about agreeing with every decision or avoiding criticism. It's about standing by the people who have placed their trust in you, even when it's difficult." Jungkook's mother continued. "Jungkook taught me that true loyalty is rare. It's not about what's easy, it's about commitment. When I took on a role of raising him, I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I believed in him." Jiwoo's eyes shone as she quickly jotted down notes. "Jungkook is society. Do you ever feel the weight of the legacy you carry?" Jungkook hesitated, his voice unsteady. Every single day. But I've realized that legacies aren't just passed down, they're built. My mother has shown me what it means to stand firm, even when the world is watching, waiting for you to stumble. The raw emotion in Jungkook's words filled the room with silence. For the first time, Jiwoo understood. This wasn't just about fame or headlines. It was about something deeper. The interview was drawing to a close, but Jiwoo wasn't ready to end it just yet. She looked at Jungkook, her voice barely above a whisper. If you could say one thing to your mother right now, what would it be? Jungkook turned to his mother, his eyes glistening with tears. Thank you for everything, for being there when I needed you most, for showing me what true courage looks like, even when it isn't easy. His mother, usually composed, swallowed hard. You don't have to thank me, Jungkook. You've got a strength in you that the world hasn't even begun to recognize. Jiwoo, clearly moved, closed her notebook. I came here searching for flaws, for a story that would challenge a legacy. But what I found was something entirely unexpected, a bond that can't be broken, a story that deserves to be told. As the cameras powered down, an overwhelming silence settled over the room. Jiwoo rose from her seat, extending a hand to Jungkook's mother. Thank you for showing me what true strength really looks like. Jungkook and his mother exchanged a knowing glance, their connection unshaken. They had weathered the storm, and soon the world would see the truth. As the day's interview came to a close, Jiwoo remained behind, unable to shake the weight of what she had uncovered. The bond between Jungkook and his mother had not only defied her expectations, but had profoundly moved her. That evening, Jungkook sat in the quiet comfort of his home, his security detail stationed just outside. His mother joined him, her presence offering quiet reassurance. Do you ever regret stepping into my life? Jungkook asked suddenly, his voice thick with emotion. His mother's gaze softened. Not for a second. You needed someone, and I needed purpose. Life has a strange way of bringing people together at just the right moment. Jungkook hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out an old photograph. It was a candid shot of his mother shielding him during that fateful incident years ago. I carry this with me, Jungkook admitted. It reminds me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to act despite it. His mother rested a hand on Jungkook's shoulder. And you've got plenty of courage, Jungkook. More than most people I've ever met. Just outside the door, unseen, Jiwoo watched in silence, her heart conflicted. The story she had set out to tell had become something far deeper than she ever anticipated. The following day, Jiwoo approached Jungkook's security team with an unusual request. I need one more interview, she said. But this time, it's not for a headline. It's for them. When Jungkook heard her request, he hesitated. Why? Jiwoo met his gaze. Because the world deserves to know the truth, not just about your mother, but about you, about everything you've both endured and overcome. After a long moment of silence, Jungkook gave a slow nod. All right, but no scripts, no rehearsed questions, just honesty. The interview was set in a quiet room, with Jungkook's mother seated beside him. Jiwoo turned to face the camera and spoke directly. Sometimes we go into a story believing we understand the narrative, but the truth is often far more powerful than we ever imagined. As Jungkook and his mother shared their personal journeys, the atmosphere in the room became increasingly emotional. Jungkook's mother spoke of sacrifice, of the toll her choices had taken on her life, and of the immense pride she felt watching Jungkook grow into a man of character and honor. To be why the time the interview concluded, there wasn't a single dry eye in the room. Even Jiwoo, usually composed, appeared visibly moved. That evening, the interview aired, and the response was immediate. Social media erupted with admiration for Jungkook's courage and his mother's humility. People from all backgrounds shared their own stories, deeply touched by the powerful connection between the two. Jungkook's phone buzzed constantly with messages of encouragement. "I wasn't expecting this," he confessed to his mother. She chuckled. People recognize honesty, Jungkook. And that's what they saw. Two people being real. Meanwhile, Jiwoo sat in her office, overwhelmed by the flood of emails and phone calls pouring in. Many expressed gratitude for shining a light on a story that wasn't about fame or status, but about genuine human connection. That night, Jungkook and his mother sat together on the balcony, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "You know," Jungkook said, "for the first time in a long time, I feel like people see me for who I really am, not just an idol." His mother smiled. "And that's more valuable than anything else." The world couldn't stop talking about the interview. Everywhere Jungkook and his mother went, they were met with admiration and respect. But beneath all the praise, trouble was brewing. A private investigator hired by a competing network dredged up an old, unproven rumor about Jungkook's mother. Though baseless, the story quickly spread. The headlines were ruthless. Jungkook's mother, a hero or a fraud? Jungkook was furious. Why can't they just leave her alone? She's done nothing but serve our family with honor. His mother, as calm as ever, simply shrugged. The truth has a way of revealing itself, Jungkook. Let them say what they want. But Jungkook refused to stay silent. That evening, he recorded a video message standing before his home. He spoke directly to the nation. "I know exactly what my mother represents: loyalty, integrity, and courage. Anyone who doubts that simply doesn't know her like I do, and they never will." Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. Millions rallied behind Jungkook's words, standing up for his mother and denouncing the baseless attack. For the first time, his mother allowed her emotions to show. "Thank you, Jungkook. You've done more for me than I ever expected." Despite the controversy, Jungkook's mother remained committed to her original plan: a quiet evening with Jungkook at a charity gala. The event was dedicated to honoring veterans, a cause she held dear. As they stepped into the grand hall, applause erupted. But this time, it wasn't just for the idol or his mother. It was for the connection they shared. During her speech, Jungkook's mother addressed the audience. "I've been given many titles in my life, but the one I'm most proud of is mother. Jungkook isn't just an idol. He's a young man who symbolizes the future.